Morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Today's topic is going to be self-love, and it's actually one of my favorite topics because we talk about self-development and self-improvement on this channel. And I feel like if you don't have self-love, if you don't love yourself enough, you are not going to think about self-development in the first place. And people also have a different idea of what self-love actually is. Usually people, when they talk about self-love, they indulge in superficial acts, but I think it's more than that. And to shed some light on this topic, we have Victoria with us. Welcome, Victoria. So we're going to start with the very basic question. What is the meaning of self-love, and why is it difficult for people to accept themselves or love themselves for who they really are?
Thank you, Parul. I'm honored to be here. So what is self-love? Self-love is this beautiful foundation. It's this authentic connection that we have within ourselves that goes beyond, like, past the skin barriers. It's the warmth and this energy that we can feel. And it's at home. It's this authenticity, it's trust. And it encapsulates all the desires. And to love ourselves in this way unapologetically would mean we would have to let go of all these programs, everything that we have grown up through in the process. What are we afraid to lose in order to love ourselves more? And I find that it's difficult for people to accept this version of themselves because we're so used to, like, we're just so used to the same thing. Everyone's in their comfort zone. And to love ourselves as we are, in the skin you're in and like the body you're in, you would have to step away from like your telephone or the movies. And as a young girl or even young girls, we compare ourselves to what we see online or in movies and magazines. So we have to take everything that we're chewing and feeding ourselves daily and put that outside and like step in front of a mirror and be like, I love you just as you are. And it's a lot harder to say and do. As I'm even speaking it, I'm like, oof, it gives me chills.
Actually, beautifully said. And I also see that you provide yoga sessions, right? So for me, like when I started my self-love journey, I started with hot yoga and then, sun salutations and all of that. And um, I mean, it's not really easy to describe in words what yoga does to not just your body, but to your soul. So I wanted to ask you, what is yoga for you? Because you also provide yoga sessions. So what is yoga for you, and how do you think it is important for anyone who wants to start their self-love journey?
That's a good question. And I'm really glad you asked what I would define yoga as, because you can Google yoga and you're going to get many different versions. And the version that I approach with is yoga is an experience. And it's an experience of learning to detach from the mind chatter, to detach from these expectations going on outside. And it's this experience where I'm able to connect not only my physical body, but I'm able to connect my energetic body and build this. Let me see. I'm trying to think. Like, I love using the breath a lot in my yoga practice. So I feel that the breath, with combining the body and also just really tapping into all the senses to create this experience that goes beyond the mat. So it's this sacred union that is happening. And I would say it's important because we live in a society where it's just go, 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 go. And the moment we permit ourselves to slow down, especially in yoga, that is the time to slow down. Even if you're doing vinyasa or a yin class, it is very difficult. And the sooner you begin this journey, the easier it becomes the sooner this habit becomes a ritual and something you actually begin to look forward to. And it's a wonderful way to start that self-love journey. That's actually how I started mine, was through yoga and meditation.
Yoga is for everyone.
Yes. I believe yoga is for everybody, and it is also not for everybody. I cannot pull you onto the mat. I can only encourage. The rest is up to you.
Because I have seen like every time like I'm speaking with somebody and we are talking about yoga practices and all of that. Some people I see they like to indulge more in other workouts, and others are who find comfort in yoga poses. So even I feel like yoga, I feel like it's not for everybody, you know. And you talked about sacred union, right? And on your even on your website, I read this term, sacred accountability. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is the meaning of sacred accountability?
So, sacred accountability, I pair it up with the idea of taking aligned action and divine discipline, and you get sacred accountability. And that looks like when we're working towards your goal or your desire, and also giving yourself permission to have grace and moving towards what you want in a way that it's sustainable, and it's also, this is aligned for you. It's, you're going towards something because you feel it within your soul. It like keeps you up at night. And this accountability is trusting the process. It might take a while. We are nurturing the journey. We're not here to rush it. We're here to accept and honor every single step, no matter how big, no matter how small, and celebrating it along the way. Everything is worth celebrating.
And I have seen that mostly women struggle, to have this sacred accountability in their life. So, why do you think most women struggle to stand up for themselves and, create that sacred accountability?
I feel with women, especially, where we grow up with these programs, these expectations on how we're supposed to show up, and I'm using air quotes. And when it comes to finally like, oh, it's my turn, I get to do something I want, we come up against this really thick wall of guilt, of shame to go after the things that we want, because that means we would have to pull away from duties or take off some hats or something like that. And we have this feeling of like we're not worthy of deserving it, and that we're only supposed to fit in this box, which is not true. And that's why it's much harder for women to go after what they want, because we feel like we have to keep molding ourselves to fit into other people's visions in order to make everybody around us comfortable. And we got to stop.
Like, we try to, as women, we try to fit ourselves in everybody's vision. And sometimes we forget that we should be the main character of our story, not somebody else. Somewhere, somebody said it very beautifully that what matters is at the end, what matters is your relationship with yourself first, So if you don't have a strong relationship with yourself, now that also somehow I think prevents you from, taking a stand for yourself in life. So, why do you think it is necessary for women to have a strong bond with themselves first?
Once women have created this beautiful like self-loving relationship with a self, and this can even be for anyone, once we have this authentic, like, I love who I am, it's safe for me to speak my truth. Once we have created this relationship, we know our worthiness. We're able to determine our worth, and we can bring that out into the world. And that shows up in our relationships, that shows up in the workplace. It shows up when we walk into a room and people are drawn in by this energy that we're giving out, because we're carrying so much love. And now we are ready and willing to give. In yoga, you've probably heard the phrase, don't pour from an empty cup. So when women are able to fill their cup up first, now we can show up better in our relationships, whether it's with your partner, your children, the work. And this kind of falls into, once we have this strong bond with themselves, we're able to create a ripple effect in, the environment, which means we're going to have boundaries, and those having those boundaries in place are going to really, um I would say they definitely, boundaries change everything.
Feel like, if you want to put yourself first, you have to sometimes put certain things off, right? And as you mentioned, boundaries, play a role in this journey of self-love. So, first of all, how do you define boundaries, and why is it important to have them in your life?
I like to think of boundaries as this, I use the word again, sacred, but it's also an energetic protection. It's almost like you can imagine a bubble. But I always think of it like when I meditate, and I always like to cleanse myself, and I think of putting up this energetic boundary which will only allow kindness, compassion, abundance, and I'm attracting in what's aligned for myself. So these boundaries are creating a protection in which we can still show up as ourselves, and everyone around us will honor and respect and hear what we have to say. And I would say it's important to have in your life, because once you initiate and state your needs, you'll really begin to see not only people's true colors, but then you'll start to feel stronger. It's kind of hard at first, especially like if you have to say no, thank you, or yes. It's Those are examples of boundaries. It's able to, you can use boundaries to, I want to say you can use boundaries while you're building your self-love relationship, because as you're building this connection with yourself, you're going to need to step away from things you usually say yes to. So maybe instead of going out with your friends one weekend, you decide to stay home and take a really nice bath, or just catch up on chores, like kind of taking care of what you need. But it could be hard for some people to say that because there's that fear of letting people down. But as you practice using these boundaries, you're using them for good too. So always use boundaries when it comes to a decision that's in alignment with you. So if that means and looks like saying yes to an investment, or saying no to going out with your friends, at the end of the day, you'll be able to go to sleep knowing that you did what you wanted to do with these boundaries.
You said that beautifully. I love that answer. And boundaries were actually a big lesson for me because, I am a highly sensitive person and empath. So it was a big lesson for me. And it took me some time to realize that I actually needed some boundaries in my life as well. And so, how do you know you need boundaries in your life?
Would you say, like, how did I know, or how would you know as like anyone?
I mean, if somebody is new to the concept of boundaries, because usually people fear, as you said, that we want to. I talked about this in my previous episode as well. Like we are seeking outside approval, so sometimes it's really hard to say no or set boundaries, even if sometimes our needs feel compromised, but we are not able to say no. So how can somebody know if they need boundaries in life? And if you can share some examples from your life, that would be awesome as well. Yeah.
That's a great question. And I think what came up for me is when I hear someone might need boundaries, it's when you hit burnout. When you are burnt out, like you get to a certain point in your life and you feel exhausted physically, mentally, and you're trying to figure out why. And I would say, and I would ask, look back on your schedule and see everything you said yes to. And then you need to take that and start saying no to the things that are not bringing you closer to what you want. And as an example, another example of boundaries that you can apply with your relationships is let's say your friends have a party planned, right? We'll go back to that example. But you can feel it in your body that you don't want to go because you work a lot, or and maybe it's been a while since you really want to catch up on a book. So if you feel in your body that it is a no, you need to speak from your heart and say no. Like, I love you. Thank you for thinking of me. No thanks. Because when you act on that feeling, then you can guarantee you're going to have a beautiful weekend regardless. If you go against what's true for you and you go against that boundary, then the next thing you know, you're at this party and you're miserable because you didn't want to be there in the first place. And then you hear people saying, oh, I had a horrible time. I didn't want to be there. Then you are allowing this environment to bring you this unhappiness, and you had this choice, and the only thing at risk was saying no thank you. And in the past, I have found that the more I've listened to my intuition and my gut feels about making choices, I'm able to experience like very pleasurable things, and I'm also able to experience something that wasn't great. I just thought, well, maybe. So now I have this rule where if it's not in sync and if it does not feel expansive to me, I don't want it.
Just wants to start, somebody just came across this episode, and they have started thinking now, okay, yes, I also want to set some boundaries, start my self-love journey, and have a more fulfilling life like Victoria. So what should they do?
I would, one of my favorite things to do is to dream or to imagine. And I would say, I'd like for you to imagine who it is that you are wanting to be or what this desire looks like, and be as specific as you want. Like, how are you showing up in the world? What are you wearing? How do you feel? What do you smell? What do you hear? Like, tapping into all the senses and get as specific as possible. Get very creative, create a mood board, and start envisioning what this future looks like for you. And then the next step would be asking yourself where you are now, kind of taking a really good, like, take a step out of the big picture and just kind of look around. And then 6 months from now, you can either be in that same place or you can be somewhere entirely different.
Because I love to daydream a lot, and most of things I believe that I have created in my life was the result of having that vision, and like you said, just using all your senses to understand what you really want in your life. It actually gives you clarity about your actions as well, like what actions you can take, and in a way, just taking that quantum leap. And this actually brings us to our last question. What are your some of your services, and how can you help others in their journey to a fulfilling life? And how can they reach out to you?
So I do offer one-on-one coaching services for women who are looking to initiate themselves into this next level of fulfillment and lifestyle, and building these boundaries and creating these I call them juicy goals that just make them feel really good. And I love to use tools to help them start building that lifestyle. I also offer virtual private yoga instruction, and I love to guide my students into initiating what meditation is. And I customize all of my practices based on the needs and the goals of the client. And you can find me on Instagram at Victoria_Eisenhower. And I have a page on Facebook, which is Victoria Eisenhower Lotus Lifestyle. And I'm also on TikTok at imvictoria.secret. But I'm mostly on Instagram. That is the best way to reach me.
Description box below this video. So if anybody wants to check that out. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for doing this. And I think self-love is very, very important in anyone's life who wants to, improve themselves or, create a fulfilling life. Thank you so much for making time to do this. And I really hope we get to do this again sometime.
Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing, and I love connecting with other speakers who share the same vision.
Thank you so much.